Can we please stop calling this conservatism? Can we please get terms correct? There's nothing about what this MAGA-fied Republican Party has become and what they are doing that is conservative. Just take a look at this bill they have in Congress right now, which Trump is making everybody ridiculously call the big beautiful bill, or one big beautiful bill. So freaking stupid. Anyway, look at what this bill does. It adds more than $2 trillion to the debt every single year. We are going to have, under this Republican president and this Republican Congress, who people refer to as conservative, a more than $2 trillion annual deficit. And that's nothing new, because when Donald Trump was president the first time, he was by far the biggest debt spending president in all of American history. And it appears that in this term, he is going to beat his own record of being the biggest debt spending president in history. So what about that is conservative? Nothing. Nothing is conservative about that. And this at a time when our debt is so massive, more than $36 trillion, that we spend more on interest on the debt than we spend on all of our military. Just think of that. What's it going to be like in 10 years after Donald Trump and the conservative Republicans blow up the budget, add trillions upon trillions to the debt? And look at what's going on. Our credit rating as a nation is being downgraded. I mean, nothing about this is conservative. And look at the violations of the Constitution. You know, conservatives have traditionally, and I'm not talking about these people who call themselves conservative, I'm talking about traditional conservatives, which largely do not exist anymore. It turns out none of them actually believed in any of the things that they had been pretending to believe literally for decades, because all it took was this con man to show up on the scene, and they abandoned, in service of him, every principle that they ever pretended to hold. Every position on nearly every issue that they ever pretended to hold, they have abandoned. Why? Because Donald Trump is not a conservative. And you have to abandon traditional conservative principles in order to support this man, because he's not conservative in any way. And I wish we would stop calling this and referring to Trump and these Republicans as conservative. And by the way, if we talked about this correctly and used terms correctly and correctly pointed out that nothing about this is conservative, maybe we can peel off some small percentage of his support who still think that they're doing the conservative thing by supporting this guy. Because as long as we go along with this charade that this is conservative, then they're going to think that they're on the right side. There are a few in Congress who are opposing this. Tom Massey, Chip Roy, and some others. They know this isn't conservatism. They know there is nothing conservative about this, and they're actually standing up. And by the way, Republicans need to take note, because they're actually standing up to Trump, at least in this limited respect, with respect to this massive budget-busting bill that he wants pushed through the House. And they're surviving. They're actually doing well politically. They're not in fear of losing their seats by standing up to Trump. Maybe their example will cause some others to actually take a stand, but who the hell knows? I don't hold out a lot of hope for that. But the point is, if we would stop going along and using their term for themselves, they call themselves conservative. They're not. Why don't we try convincing some of their voters who actually at least still think that they're conservative, want to be conservative, point out to them, this ain't conservatism. There's nothing conservative about this. You know, every time there's a Democrat in office, they pretend to care about the debt. Donald Trump gets elected, suddenly they don't give a shit about the debt anymore. Why? Because, among other things, they're a cult, but even the people who aren't really part of the cult, they don't worship Donald Trump personally, but they go along and they vote for Republicans because they're getting all their news and information from these right-wing sources who tell them this is conservatism. They don't tell them how this is going to bust the budget wide open. You think Fox is reporting in any real way that this is we're going to add, Trump is going to be having bigger deficits than any president in American history into the foreseeable future? And we're going to add more than $20 trillion to the national debt in the next 10 years under this bill? 10 years from now, we will have a what? Nearly $60 trillion debt? And right now, we're already spending more than we spend on the military just to finance the debt we already have? Let's point out, this is nothing conservative about this. They're destroying our future. They're destroying their own kids' future going along with this. Now, is that going to convince many of them to abandon Trump? Oh, hell no. Will it convince a few? Maybe. And, small numbers, the margins could be important. So I just wish that we wouldn't play their game. Donald Trump wants to be thought of as a conservative. These MAGA Republicans want to be labeled as conservatives. They're not. Stop giving them what they want. Stop pushing this lie that any of this is conservative. It's not. This is big government, right-wing fascism. That's what it is. And the Constitution, I won't go off on that right now, just except to say this. I started saying this before, but traditional conservatives have always supported the Constitution. I mean, how many times do they get on TV talking about the Constitution? In what way do any of these people even support the Constitution in practice anymore? Trump is violating the Constitution left and right. Not a word from these friggin' people. There's nothing conservative about this. Stop giving them what they want. Stop playing the game by calling them conservative. Call them big government fascists. Or if you don't want to use fascist because that might reflexively turn them off, big government something. This is big government. That's what this is. Nothing conservative about that. They pride themselves on being small government conservative. There's nothing small government about this. DOGE is it's just part of the con job to make it look like they're cutting government, cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. Oh yeah? They're cutting abuse? I mean, they're cutting waste, fraud, and abuse? Where's the fraud? Fraud is a friggin' crime. Where are the prosecutions for fraud if they're finding so much fraud? There isn't any. And where are all the savings? There aren't any. There's no savings. Trump has already spent more than Joe Biden was spending at this point last year. He's increased spending over last year. There's no spending cuts. There's no fraud. There's no significant waste being discovered. It's all a con job. It's to make it look like Donald Trump is a small government conservative. He's nothing of the sort. He is a big government fascist is what he is. But we should at least be pointing out that this is not small government conservatism in any way. This is Trump's version of big government. And his massive deficit spending is going to destroy this country. Nothing conservative about that. Let's start calling it like it is. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Talk to you again soon.